Welcome to Kernels. I am Misty Gray, the Southwest District Consultant for the State Library of Iowa. Kernels are posted to the State Library of Iowa's Continuing Education YouTube channel, and there's a whole playlist of them, so check them all out. You can also find Kernels on Iowa Learns, our learning management system, so Iowa librarians can watch them for CE credit. Just watch the video and complete the evaluation. These short videos feature a variety of topics relevant to Iowa libraries and typically have Iowa librarians sharing what they know so others can take that information to their own libraries. Think of Kernels as a quick pop of professional development. This time, we are taking you to Brooks Mitchell from the Space Science Institute on behalf of SEAL. SEAL stands for Solar Eclipse Activities for Libraries. He will share information on upcoming eclipses that will be visible in the United States, and he will tell you about circulating kits that you will be able to check out from the State Library.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brooks Mitchell, and I'm an education associate with the Star Library Network. We're based out of Boulder, Colorado, and we're here today to talk a little bit about the 2023 and 2024 solar eclipses and ways that your library can prepare for those events and provide STEM programming and solar science programming, not just on the day of the eclipse, but in the days leading up to it and in the time after. So when I say eclipse, you might get a little nervous, and that's because we just had one in 2017, and it was very, very, very popular with the general public. So the 2017 Great American Eclipse traveled from Oregon to the coast of South Carolina. It went right across the United States. And a lot of people had amazing experiences getting to view the sun as it was eclipsed, and in general, just learning about solar science. So we can see a map here, and this shows the path of totality, which went from Oregon all the way to South Carolina. And this is a map of all the public libraries that participated in 2017. And you see that it's not just those libraries that are located along the path. In fact, it's some libraries that are located really far away from the path where maybe we only got 20 or 30 or 40% of totality. So it was really, really popular. Libraries did a great job stepping up to the plate and providing solar science learning and viewing opportunities for their patrons. And our project in 2017, with funding from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, provided 2.1 million eclipse glasses to over 7,000 individual library locations. That's not just public libraries, that's also bookmobiles, tribal libraries, library consortia, and state libraries as well. And in general, public libraries really enjoyed doing the solar science programming. This is Fort Fairfield Public Library in Maine. They said, our Eclipse programming has connected us with community collaborators for future programming and has created excitement from our patrons about future STEM programming. So this wasn't just a one-time thing, on the day of the eclipse. The effects from the solar science programming that libraries learned about and had resources for went far beyond just that one day. So what's next? And yes, this is a picture of my dog. In 2023 and 2024, there will be 2 more eclipses. It's pretty rare to have 3 in such a short time frame. So on October 14th, 2023, an annular eclipse will travel from the coast of Oregon to kind of the coast of southeast Texas over there. And then we see in 2024, a total solar eclipse will travel from southwest Texas all the way up to till Maine. So it'll give Americans kind of across the country a really good chance to see either a total or an annular solar eclipse. So again, with partnering with the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, for these eclipses, we're distributing over 5 million eclipse glasses to the public. And we're also providing workshops and trainings in all 50 US states and 4 US territories to help library staff get ready to facilitate more solar science programming. And I wanted to stop just for a minute and talk about the whole, who's doing this? Who is our organization? We work for the Space Science Institute. And like I said, we're based out of Boulder, Colorado. And the Space Science Institute is primarily research oriented, but we also have an education branch as well. So you see many of our research programs are planetary, space physics, earth science, and astrophysics. And then our education side is the National Center for Interactive Learning. And at NCIL, as we say, we run the Star Library Education Network, or StarNet. Now, if we were doing this live, I'd say, how many of you have heard of StarNet before? And hopefully many of you have used our free online resources, or maybe you've hosted one of our exhibits. So we do a lot of different things. We provide exhibits, we provide kits like STEM circulation kits. We provide professional development opportunities, community dialogue opportunities. We help match libraries with subject matter experts to facilitate programs together. We also help libraries kind of rally around big events. We provide interactive, hands-on digital activities, talk about facilitation strategies. We help disseminate resources from other organizations. And lastly, on that list, you can see we provide Eclipse classes and training on how to do safe solar viewing. So with each individual, for each individual state and those 4 US territories, StarNet, again, in partnership with the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, are providing a total of 4 kits, 2 multi-generational kits, and 2, I would say, younger audiences kits. So we're providing those to each state library, and how those are circulated and distributed within each state is kind of up to that state library that we've been working with. But in general, I wanted to provide you with an overview of what comes in these kits in case you have the opportunity to check them out, or in case you want to replicate these kits and provide some of these activities for your own library patrons. So in the multi-generational kit, again, each state is getting 2 of these. It comes with a pretty robust container, and it also comes with a Coronado personal solar telescope. Now, this might seem intimidating. Hey, a telescope to look at the sun, that makes me a little nervous. Don't worry, it's kind of foolproof. There is a built-in solar filter into the telescope. So, if you just go up and you look at it, it's going to be completely black until you get the sun aligned, and then you'll see kind of a little red dot, and hopefully you'll see some sunspots and maybe some solar prominences. So there's a telescope case that comes with that, a telescope mount, a fun book about when the sun goes dark that could be really good for all ages. There's 2 large sunoculars. And if you're wondering what a sunocular is, hey, is that just binoculars we look at the sun with? Yeah, you're right. They have filters built into those as well, so you get a really cool image of the sun. And then an activity guide for a fun, easy to facilitate activity called Big Sun, Little Moon. So again, that's the multi-generational kit. That's great for all ages. And we'll talk about the kit for younger audiences, but just know that a lot of adults will probably enjoy this kit as well. So we've differentiated by age groups, but in general, I think that most patron ages will enjoy both kits. So the younger audiences kit, the big kind of high profile thing there is the sun spotter. You see a picture of that in the top left. The sun spotter is an indirect way of doing solar viewing. So an image of the sun comes in, it bounces off some mirrors and projects down onto that piece of paper. And you can have your patrons draw out the sun. They can, color in any sunspots that they see. So that's a sun spotter. There's also a really, really great activity called Moon Bear's Shadow. It comes with a book and some activity pieces, and you're basically just talking about how shadows work. And then it comes with 2 smaller sunoculars, and it comes with a few copies of the sorting game activity, which we'll do today with the limited amount of time that we have. Okay, so sorting games. I wanted to do this because for most presentations and most trainings, you got to do a fun activity. Sorting games is also called How Big, How Far, How Hot, and it's really fun. It's really open-ended. It's a great icebreaker activity. And basically, you give your patrons a set of cards, and you ask them to put them in order of what they think. So if they're green cards, they go from smallest to largest. If they're blue cards, they go from distance, which would be closest to furthest. And the hardest one, the red cards, are temperature, coldest to hottest. Now, I'm presuming that all of you are, we're adults here. We've learned a few things. We've made it through school. So I wanted to jump in right into the red cards. And I'll go ahead and let you take a look at these. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to wait a minute or two. I want you to look at these. And in your head, put these in order of coldest to hottest. I'll give you a hint. None of these things are particularly cold, so it is a relative scale. But yeah, I want you to look at this coldest to hottest. I'm going to turn my camera off for about 2 minutes maybe, and give you some time to think, and then we'll talk about the answers. Okay, we'll give you about 30 more seconds. Okay, so hopefully you were able to kind of access some of your prior knowledge and what you already know about these different items, what you know about the sun, what you know about Earth's core, to put these in somewhat of a reasonable order. But the whole point of this game is to have those conversations and to think about what you know. It's not really about getting the answer right, because I've facilitated this, maybe 40 times and I still get these answers wrong. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. You don't have to hold on to all those facts to be a good facilitator of SIM. So it's really about getting the conversation started. If you're doing this for a group of patrons, you put them into groups and have them sort through the cards. And again, this one's pretty hard. I usually start on the green, then go to the blue and then the red, but we jumped right into the deep end with this one. So drum roll, please. All right, first we have comet surface at 171 degrees Fahrenheit, then lava at around 1800 degrees, a meteor at 3100 degrees, a sunspot at 6300 degrees, the sun's surface is about 10,000 degrees, the Earth's core is about 11,000 degrees, so pretty interesting. The Earth's core is hotter than the surface of the sun. A lightning bolt is 52,000 degrees, and the sun's corona is 3.6 million degrees. And the sun's core is estimated to be 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty hot. Now, of course, these are just like estimates. There's not, a precise one single temperature for the surface of a comet. These are just kind of our best approximations based on what we know and observations that we've made. So that's how hot. That's from Sorting Games. How big, how far, how hot. We'll share a link for how you can access this at the very end, along with lots of other resources. So again, just a great activity to get the conversation started. It's great in person. You can also do it virtually as well. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what eclipses are. You can kind of first start by thinking, what do we know about the sun, right? So pretty much the sun is pretty consistent. It's hot, it's big, it's glowing, it's just bright out there. We can't really look at it or it'll hurt our eyes. And sometimes the sun gets a little different, right? So a sunset, the sun maybe will change colors. You can kind of see it out of the corner of your eye. It's a little bit more defined. So sometimes the sun, it does different things, but it's on a very kind of a regular occurrence, right? It rises in the morning, it sets in the evening. But every once in a while, we look up in the sky, and for a few hours, we start to see a little like chunk of the sun being taken away by a shadow. Sometimes, even more rare than that, we'll see all of the sun being taken out by a shadow of the moon, and it provides this really kind of awe-inspiring effect around the sun. We can finally see the sun's atmosphere, and in this picture, you can even see, maybe some solar prominences coming off. You can start to really understand that the sun is not just this perfect round ball up in the sky, that there's actually a lot going on. And so also sometimes you might see an annular eclipse. And an annular eclipse is when the moon is a little bit farther out in its orbit, and therefore it doesn't take up as much space. And you can see kind of a ring around the sun. Now, I want to say, going back, a total solar eclipse is the only time ever, those 2 minutes that you have totality are the only time that you can ever take off your eclipse viewing glasses or your solar safety viewing equipment to look at the sun. Only for those, brief period of time is the sun safe to observe. Even with an annular eclipse, just with that small little ring around, you still can't take off your solar eclipse glasses because your eyes could be seriously damaged. So what's going on? Why do we have eclipses? It seems pretty simple, right? The moon gets in front of the sun. We know the moon orbits around the Earth, right? And so the moon gets between the Earth and the sun. It casts a shadow on the Earth, and we're done. The end, right? Well, it's not really that easy, okay? Solar eclipses are actually really rare. And there's an interesting reason why they're so rare. There's different kinds of eclipses, right? We talked about total, we talked about annular. There's even a hybrid solar eclipse where it's total and then it's annular. And also, totality. Why is that such a big deal? If we get solar eclipses, shouldn't everybody have a total solar eclipse? Why do we have partial solar eclipses? And also, isn't this very dangerous, right? Looking up at the sun is the light from a solar eclipse any different from the light that we see normally? So I want to answer those questions. They're so rare because the scale, right? When we typically see a solar system model, the scale is way, way, way off. And so if our Earth was this big, our moon was that big, the sun would be way, way off the screen, hundreds of feet likely, depending on how you're viewing this, the size of your monitor, away. So just that alone makes this a little bit more rare of an occurrence. Also, the moon doesn't orbit the Earth in a straight plane, right? So the way that the moon orbits the Earth is kind of at a little bit of an angle. So it doesn't get directly in between the Earth and the sun quite so often as you might think. You would think it would be once a month, but that's not really the case. So that's the shadow of the moon. You can see in this case, the shadow of the moon is way over the Earth. Here's a nice little animated version that kind of walks through that. So again, you can see the moon circling around the Earth. The shadow's not hitting it. And then suddenly the shadow does hit it. Now let's take a close-up view. Okay, again, so you're seeing it's at a different plane, and suddenly, as it reaches the correct plane, it does block out the sun and cast a shadow onto the Earth. All right, so annular eclipses, as we mentioned, the moon, yeah, right. So the sun is always going to be way off the screen in an accurate scaled model. So an annular eclipse occurs as the moon's orbit around the Earth is not perfectly circular, right? Circular. Sometimes the moon is farther away. Sometimes the moon is closer. And sometimes when the moon is farther away, it is not quite big enough to cast a full shadow or to completely eclipse the sun, I should say. So it's just going to be a little bit smaller, and it's going to leave that ring like we saw in that picture around the sun. Now it's pretty interesting. The moon is 400 times the distance, or excuse me, 400 Earths away from Earth. And the moon is also 400 times smaller than the sun. So it works out just perfectly that the moon is able to completely eclipse the sun. So in 2023, for that annular eclipse, many of us will see partial solar eclipses. We'll share some resources for maps and things like that to determine where you are. And some of us will see totality, right? So if you're in that path of a total solar eclipse, you'll see totality. But again, it'll have a ring around it, and it won't be safe to take off your solar eclipse glasses. It'll still make for some really incredible solar viewing, but you will need your eclipse glasses on throughout the entire event. In 2024, if you're along the path of totality, you'll see that diamond ring effect. So that's a picture that you're seeing kind of on the right of the screen. And so that's just, the last little parts of the eclipse when this beautiful ring, the sunlight's just starting to reach around the moon, and you see this blast of light. You'll also be able to see Bailey's beads, and that's going to be in that bottom picture. And what's happening there is that the moon has valleys, it has mountains, it has topographical features. And so as the total eclipse ends, different parts of the sun are peeking through some of the valleys, peeking through some of the mountains, and it provides a really cool visual effect. And yes, in those few minutes of totality, you can take your solar eclipse glasses off. In fact, you should take your solar eclipse glasses off because it is a really awe-inspiring it's a thing to view the sun when it's totally eclipsed by the moon. It's really spectacular. So what's so special about totality? Again, the sun's atmosphere is really, really, really hot, and it's really, really bright, and we can't view it normally. So a total eclipse is the only time that you can see the sun's atmosphere, or the solar corona. The sun is 400,000 times brighter than the corona. So even if you are at 99% totality, that's too bright, unfortunately, to be able to look at the sun's atmosphere. And again, this is the one and only time that you can and should take your solar eclipse glasses off to look at the sun. And when you see the sun's corona, you'll see some interesting structure. The sun has a magnetic field just like the Earth, but it's much more complex and it's much more massive. So the plasma emanating from the sun kind of moves along that field and traces out its structure. So if you were able to look a little bit closer in, you could actually see some solar prominences. And that's areas or arcs of hot plasma that are rising from the sun's surface. And the sunspots are kind of areas where those solar prominences are anchored, if you will. So you can see some of those solar prominences in the bottom right image. So here are the two maps for the 2023 annular solar eclipse and the 2024 total solar eclipse. You can see the annular eclipse moves from the coast of Oregon down to southeastern Texas, and the 2024 eclipse moves from southwestern Texas all the way up to Maine. So I'll pause for a second and let you all identify yourself on a map and figure out where you are. But there's lots of other ways to access this information. You can see a QR code and a link right here. And at the end of this slide deck, the last slide I show will have a QR code that you can, scan as well. It'll be a QR code, I should say, for patrons as well, if you want to send something directly to your patrons, and a QR code for library staff. Okay, so things you can observe anytime with solar viewing equipment like solar eclipse glasses or a solar telescope are sunspots. So as I mentioned, sunspots are kind of where those solar prominences can be arced, and they are the coolest part of the sun. Feels silly saying something is cool when it's a few thousand degrees hot, but they don't occur all the time. They occur kind of in waves. And you can see on this chart at the top right, that red line is a model over the solar activity over the next few years. And we should be at a pretty good position to see sunspots over the next few years if we were to go out and look at the sun. Now, the sun does rotate, so those sunspots will move. If you're able to go out and observe the sun day by day, you'll see the sunspots moving across the surface of the sun. This is really, really exciting. If you use the sun spotter, if you have access to that and you project an image of the sun, you can see them very clearly. And it kind of raises some questions of like, hey, what's going on the sun? Maybe it's not as perfectly round and homogeneous as we thought, right? Maybe there's actually interesting things that scientists want to study, and that the sun isn't just, perfectly the same throughout time. So you can see the images down here, those black dots. Now, if you are using the sun spotter, be careful that it's not just a smudge on the piece of paper, right? But solar sunspots, are pretty easy to identify. And you can even access websites ahead of time that tell you where they'll be on the surface of the sun before you go out and do your solar viewing. So I should say that we have a lot of resources that you can use within our organization if you're trying to promote the solar eclipse. Here's a slide. I'll share our slide deck out too. It'll be available on our website, and you can grab any of these graphics. So eclipse glasses. We are able to provide over 5 million eclipse glasses to library patrons across the nation, and you might have some left over from 2017. Eclipse glasses will remain safe for a period of time if you take care of them. You don't want to crumble your eclipse glasses. You don't want to tear your eclipse glasses, obviously. An easy way to tell if you have eclipse glasses or if your eclipse glasses are good to go are to just hold them up to some light and see if any light comes through. If any light whatsoever besides an image of the sun comes through, then they aren't safe to use, unfortunately. Now, there is a period of time between the 2023 and 2024 solar eclipses. So I would recommend, if you're sending out some solar eclipse glasses to your patrons and you're holding some back, make sure to keep them kind of in a cool, dark place, somewhere where they're not really exposed to the elements. You can keep them in an envelope or a folder or anything that prevents them from getting really scratched up. And I'll share a link at the end of this presentation, a QR code that'll take you to the website. If you haven't registered for eclipse glasses already, that can get you signed up for eclipse classes. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the STEM Activity Clearinghouse. This is where a lot of our activities, like the sorting games activity and some of the ones that we're featuring in the kits, this is where they live. The clearinghouse is about 600 activities that are either designed for the library setting or they work really well in the library setting. So they're not necessarily, maybe if you find an activity online, it has strict kind of curricula guides and it's meant for the classroom setting, and it's not really that great for a library. The STEM Activity Clearinghouse activities are designed, again, for that informal learning environment. And everything that we have, is free, so there's no cost to use anything. It's also sortable, so you can go in, you can say, hey, I need a space science activity for teenagers, and I need it to be about 30 minutes long. You can select those parameters, filter out the rest, and you can come up with, however many activities there are out there. We also have library staff that go in and they review the activities. They'll facilitate it in their own library, and they'll stop and say, hey, this actually didn't work that well. Let me leave a review. Or, hey, this was awesome. Here's what I did to modify the activity. And so if you do use some activities from the STEM Activity Clearinghouse, please leave a review, help some other libraries out. Or if you see something that you're like, actually, I don't think that would work in a library setting, you're always welcome to email me. I don't work in a library, although I do work with libraries a lot. But so I know the reality of what your day-to-day is a little bit different, right? So if you see an activity, it doesn't totally work for you, either leave a review, let us know. But the purpose is to kind of have that peer review system for library staff to help each other out. So that's the STEM Activity Clearinghouse. About 600 free STEM activities, good for the library setting. And with that, I wanted to share the QR codes that I mentioned. The first one is patron-facing eclipse information. So this is information about where the eclipse is coming, what time it'll be at your library or your community, how long it'll be at your community, other information like different games that you could access, different resources that you could access through NASA about the eclipse. And the QR code on the right is specifically for library staff. So this is where you'll follow if you want to go get signed up for eclipse classes. All you'll need is a letter from your library director just saying that they support what you're doing. and you can upload that with your registration form. So again, that's going to be through our StarNet website on the right, and that's kind of, for professionals. It's for library staff. And the one on the left is for patrons. If you just want to provide them with an easily accessible, kind of vetted website where they can find more information about the eclipses. I've also included my email down below, just as a reminder. I've also included Annie Holland's email. She is the project PI, so the one that's kind of running the show. So if you have any big picture questions, feel free to reach out to both me and Annie. If you have any shorter, easier questions, feel free to reach out directly just to me. And if you've already signed up for Eclipse classes and you're wondering, hey, I haven't received any confirmation. I don't know if I'm actually going to get these or not. Is this just a scam or something like that? Well, no, we are processing them each individually, kind of by hand, to make sure that we get them sent out to the right location and that we're not sending multiple to each, multiple sets of Eclipse classes to each library. So don't fear. You're welcome to email me and I can double check that your Eclipse classes order is in. But yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions related to the kits, related to the activities, related to the Eclipse classes. I also want to say that we'll be posting probably this training video and other training videos on our YouTube website, which you can access through the For Library Staff QR code there as well. And that's just youtube.com/StarNetLibraries. So keep your eyes peeled there. We'll be doing a series of kind of 1 hour, a little bit of a presentation, but mostly just a discussion and kind of a Q&A for anybody that wants to talk about this project and the different things we're doing, or if you want to share ideas with other library staff. So those will start in January, and we'll offer about 2 to 3 of those per month. We'll limit them to about 50 people so that we can have a good conversation. It kind of gets hard to share ideas when you have hundreds of people in a Zoom room. But yeah, feel free to be on the lookout for those. Again, that'll be on the QR code on the right. And lastly, I should say our newsletter, our StarNet newsletter, we send out once a month, and that's where we provide information about all of our initiatives, all of our projects. Sometimes we have grant funding opportunities where we can provide funds or resources for library staff. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, we won't spam you because, well, that would be a lot of work for me to send out multiple newsletters in a month. We only send out one a month, and maybe if there's a really, really exciting opportunity, we'll kind of do a special edition of the newsletter. So I think that's all of the resources that I have to share with you. Again, our email address is starnetlibraries.org. This is called the SEAL project, the Solar Eclipse Activities for Libraries project. And we look forward to hearing you. And yeah, make sure that, in 2023 and 2024, you are looking up at the skies and viewing the sun and getting your patrons really excited about these 2 celestial amazing events. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for watching, and thank you to Brooks Mitchell for being a part of Kernels today. Look for the kits mentioned in this kernel in the STEM to Go circulating collection. If you're watching YouTube, please check out the links in the description for more information. In Iowa Learns, these are usually stored as attachments. If you've got a little bit of time, watch another kernel. And if you're doing something at your library, a program, initiative, service, or something else that you think would make a great kernel, we want to hear about it. Reach out and tell us about it. Thank you.